Hello and welcome to Con Las Comadres. This is our very first episode of the year 2019. And today we're going to be talking about decolonizing knowledge, decolonizing academia, and popular education. My name is Edna.
This is Karina.
And this is Jennifer.
And we're back.
We're back and sick.
Before we get into the school things, we did want to celebrate the many accomplishments that we've been able to have despite the stresses we face, going to school, working, taking care of family. We just recently were invited to a conference, and Edna's been speaking on several panels, and we've been presenting a lot of the work that I had mentioned we were going to do in the summer, in which Jennifer went to Oaxaca, I went to Puerto Rico, and then I went to Guatemala. And so that's been a big project, and we have a lot of editing and sorting to still go through, but it's something that you should definitely keep an eye out for. We're building up our website, www.conlascomadres.com.
Yes, it's official. We're official now.
We're on official.com. What else, Jennifer? What's been going on with you?
Nothing. I just finished that constructing a research pamphlet that's gonna be going to Colombia, if it's not already there yet, with my professor who I've been working with on her qualitative research project this entire semester.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm about to officially start a research program at UCLA. It was hard. It was a hustle. Karina was there helping me with the process.
This is a story.
It was amazing.
So this woman has to turn in I don't know how many pages of a proposal, and then at the last moment when I had just had a piece of an edible, like I'm feeling it, it's coming on, and
that I give to you,
that she gives to me, she looks at me with eyes like full of like anxiety and
I need you to pick this for me, please.
She's like, Karina, I need you to do me a favor. I'm like, what? I need you to drive to Santa Monica in rush hour and come back before 5.
What?
Yeah, and it was probably like 3:30, and I'm like, are you serious?
And
she's
then
like,
she was so high already that she left the phone and the wallet there, and I'm like, Karina, don't forget this.
I literally sat in my car for like 15-20 minutes just breathing because I was like, oh my god, I'm too high for this. Wait, if my mom's hearing, I don't drive while I'm high. But
if the police is listening to this, please don't give her a DUI.
I made it. I didn't make it on time, but I made it alive. I picked it up, and then at the same time, this bitch had this turkey box the school was giving out
for free. It was a free turkey.
It was like how many pounds was that turkey?
So like a 17 pounds.
And she was carrying this all around.
So
campus.
I have to hide it on the bushes because I need to go and meet Karina and then drop the things that I have to drop. But you know, the people in the research program, they were so nice with me. I'm like, I'm late, and they're like, hey, take it easy. And I'm like, you know, this is happening. My friend, she's so high and she's doing this.
You told them I was high?
Yeah, la verdad no será libres. And then
cool.
They're like, okay.
Can you translate that for people who don't know Spanish?
Oh, the truth will make us free.
Okay.
So, you know, they called me for an interview, and I was 100% honest. They're like, what you want? I'm like, I want your money, and I'm going to be late every time, but because I'm a working class student of color, I'm an immigrant, and I have family back home and sending money, so I'm not going to be the student that is going to be here 20 minutes before. I'm going to be the student that is going to be here probably 15 minutes late, if not 1 hour.
Well, that's a big difference, but
I was honest, and they still giving me
and the
money.
bitch still got the money.
She fucking got it, y'all. She got it.
So that's where we're at, you know, developing our stuff.
That's my boo.
Supporting each other.
Trying to grow, but keeping it real at the same time.
Real, yeah.
We ain't gonna know that choice.
And yeah, so we're here. I think this is an episode that we've been wanting to do for a while. I know in the first episode that we presented, we talked about how we met in community college, but now we're all in 4 years, and it's been, I think, a different journey for each one of us, but I think we face a lot of the same frustrations along the way, navigating this space that the more I'm in it, the more I realize it's not constructed for me to be in.
For none of us, honestly. It wasn't made for any of us, you know? How do you navigate a place that was basically made for white men, basically made for people who have class, the wealth and capital to navigate these spaces.
Yeah, and it's funny because we all go to public universities. These are like Jennifer
Quote,
goes.
unquote, public.
Yeah.
Public.
Exactly. The fuck, they be straining our fucking funds just to get through a fucking semester.
That's right. Jennifer, you're at Cal State's. We're at Cal State Long Beach. We're at UCLA. But yeah, they act like corporate entities, and they charge you just to fucking like you're basically
breathe their air. It's
to
ridiculous.
breathe their air. Between housing, transportation, books, all that stuff. And for those of you who have been through the process and know, it's a fucking struggle. And then for those of you that maybe that wasn't your path, like, this is what it is. They tell you like, yeah, get your bachelor's so you can get a better job or whatever. It's part of this like pre-paved plan and journey that you're expected to complete. But what they don't tell you is you're going to get into a massive amount of debt, which honestly, I don't even know if that's financially like smart. And in the process, it really makes you question a lot of things. And I think that's kind of what we're wanting to touch about. Not just the things that we've struggled through, but the things we've realized and how we've been able to like overcome and make it our own.
And it's actually really hard to get to the point that we are. And I think it's for me, it's fair to say that for me, being an academic and being an immigrant really do not represent anything from my community, because I think I'm fitting into this idea of the good immigrant and the bad immigrant, the one to go to school, have the time, or the one that just decide not to go to school because the hustle is so hard that cannot afford to take that privilege. So I think it is important not only to realize how hard it is to get there, but then once you get there, the fucking struggle just to navigate academia, not only as a person of color, but as someone that is really committed to make a change in the world, it is very difficult. Like, for example, in the moment that we get there, you start seeing all these barriers that prevent you to not only do the things in the way that you want, but also they punish you because you have a mind setting that it's not necessarily going with the patriarchal liberal bullshit. And like I'm saying, we're living in California. I cannot even imagine. I was talking with a friend who graduated from Duke University, and she was telling me how fucking hard was for her as a woman of color studying there. Like, literally, she was in the bathroom on the institution, and the white women asked her for like tampons, toilet paper, because they thought she worked there and she was another student. So there's levels, but
there's a lot of levels, and
everybody's hustling.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest realizations I've had, or like, it wasn't even a big one, but it kind of clicked, right, when everything starts to make sense. And it was that these institutions are kind of like the gatekeepers to positions of power. So when we think about the people who are funneled through there and then what they end up doing, especially when it's like a prestigious school, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that means. And so they're just reaffirming the hegemonic narratives, the way of thinking, the quote unquote solutions that they're proposing from the same mindset, which is a white male mindset. And I think you actually talk a little bit about this in the interview that we're going to present today about presenting knowledge from the male gaze. So yes. I think that was one of the most recent realizations I had while navigating school.
Yeah, the male gaze, the white gaze. Even like when you come up with this idea that may seem progressive, like, for example, I'm very interested in the decolonial idea of knowledge. You're always gonna find that even with that, you're gonna see that there's a structure created to decolonize thinking, that it's created from the perspective of also white men. So we always need to, even when we get to spaces that may seem radical or may seem progressive, you always need to dig deeper, because there's always going to be a door that you cannot enter because of your status as a woman of color. So you always need to dig deep and see how can you change that.
Yeah, and the idea that we have to pay for knowledge, a knowledge that, like, when I first entered school, again, after 4 years, I went off, I had a baby, I was working and struggling, and I went in and I was like, you know what, I just want to learn about what is my real history, because growing up, I didn't get that, we were talked about as a territory, you know, Puerto Rico, and I'm like, but what's our real history, and what's really going on, and me thinking naively, like, what are the, you know, these solutions that they're proposing in the institutions, because you're really taught to like put them on a pedestal and think like this is the epitome of like knowledge and success and all of that stuff.
Yeah, but who's measuring all of that? Who's legitimating that? What is the structure of power that disobey?
And why do you get to choose that? The fuck? Why do you get to choose that?
Yeah.
And the money that you have to invest is just, once you get in the loans, you fall in this capitalistic system that it's just gonna keep you there forever.
Right.
And you're gonna be working just to fulfill something.
Right, and that actually bleeds into the way they actually teach this capitalistic kind of like white supremacist standards of achievement. You're pressured to produce. You're not really sitting with the information. There's no real like in-depth discussion. Maybe you might glaze over it, but how is the student really learning how to think for themselves and developing their own voice? Like for me, maybe I'm a little slow, but I can't do that in 10 weeks with a new topic.
And you know, everybody has their own process of critical thinking, critical analysis. And I'm telling you this from the perspective of intergenerational trauma. For me, to being thrown in classes that's gonna like trigger a lot of the trauma that I have. Yes, of course, I'm not gonna be able to talk in the academic language they speak because my heart is beating because I'm feeling that. But they expecting me to talk in this academic language and create an idea that is like surrendered by the sufferer of my people. It is really hard, and I cannot avoid but thinking, for example, when we are in this class, or for example talking about race within a perspective that is created with microaggressions, and you see around there's just a few students of colors. I feel a lot of pain when we're talking about a topic like it's nothing, when it's affecting me day by day. And then I see around and I can see the uncomfortable, the body's like twitching of students of color, because when you have a white professor talking about race, it's like talking about another thing that doesn't affect them. And then you have these white students receiving and studying race as a category that they need to understand from a book. When for students of color, we feel that on the flesh day by day. There's no words to express what we're feeling. So how can you study what it's interesting for you without going through all that pain?
And also, this is just a continuation of the colonial project of how they implement a certain mindset into a generation of people who keep coming through these institutions. And you having to fight through that narrative again constantly. Like, there have been multiple times when I had to check professors on like the sort of rhetoric they use when they talk about communities of color, when they talk about poor communities of color.
Right, and the reason I feel like all three of us came into these places is so that we can kind of like mobilize with the people that we meet.
We would never stop like thinking about, well, at least when I'm in these spaces, I never stop thinking about how it's going to be useful to what I do on the daily. Like, if we organize, how is what I'm learning going to like help the people I'm working with? How is what I'm like learning is oriented towards liberation? It's not. This institution is meant to integrate us into a system that is capitalistic, that is homophobic, that is patriarchal, that is all these sorts of isms. And it's like, I don't want to be a part of that. That's why it's so fucking frustrating having to be there every fucking semester. It's like, you're not helping me to liberate myself. You're helping to indoctrinate me with your narrative, and that's the thing that I'm trying to fight against.
And you know, even when you're doing all this work, it's a hustle for you to get the work that you do there, con tu sudor, con tu sangre, con tus lágrimas, to be accessible for people outside the institution. Like right now, I'm about to go through a really big hustle on get a publication in Spanish through the university, so I can bring that to Guatemala and just distribute it for free there. Like, why education cannot be like a universal right within those institutions if the students of color are creating it? And then at the end of the day, makes you wonder, like, is that the place that you want to be? You want to be part of that elite that is just dragging you down and putting you down? So I think what Karina was asking, where is the middle? I find that for me, this is my middle. I have this place that I can create, that I can just engage with community outside the institution, and like be real and be honest about all the struggles that we're going in there.
Right, and getting more people involved and from different backgrounds. Like I know how hard it is. Like, I'm a single mom. I'm out here hustling, having to explain to every professor why it's challenging to submit all of this work on their
Yes.
timeline. It's like, first of all, my kid has needs. He wakes up every day. I gotta take him to school. Like, I gotta cook for him. I gotta keep the house clean. Like, all this labor I have to do as a mother, and all these expectations. And on top of that, you want me to read a whole book in a week and then write about it?
I'm a foul. Got me fucked up.
Exactly. And it's funny because then I'm sure people will be like, well, then why are you doing it? Well, because I don't want to be working at a minimum wage job, because that shit is hard too. So I'm not it's complaining, but it's not complaining. It's being critical and being honest and real, like we were saying in the beginning. You know, it's not peaches and cream. They love to say like, oh, you know, like single mom, we are diverse and we're accepting and we give resources, but those resources are super limited.
Exactly.
And then you're met with a lot of microaggressions in that process. Like, you would think that in these spaces that proclaim to be that way, they'd be more understanding, but it's always having to be like explaining and justifying the reason that, you know, you can't meet these fucking ridiculous expectations. And everyone in these places is depressed.
Oh, hell yeah.
Suffering from like anxiety caused from like this requirement to produce
unrealistic with this unrealistic perspective of what you need to give. And I think I'm always honest. Every time that I start a class, I'm like, hey, probably I'm gonna be late and probably I'm gonna be asking you for extensions, because this is the person that I am. I cannot just deal with all my life on the side and then try to, you know, like fit in this fucking standard of I mean, I'm an A student right now, but it's been a fucking hard way just to get there. To be honest, like, I haven't taken a class that I haven't submit a paper late. It's always happening, and I'm always missing one or two things. So I'm not even expecting to get to the fucking level of a perfect student. It's not gonna happen, and I'm not reaching for that, because I'm being real. It's not gonna happen with the life that we have as women of color.
I gave up on that perfect student a long time ago, like the idea, because it's just not my reality. And I'm like, dude, as long as I get this shit done, like, I've been every quarter I have like this existential crisis right between midterms and finals.
Our hair was failing. My hair started falling this year. It was fucking I didn't shower for weeks and weeks. It was fucking, I swear, like, I just wake up and I just run to school, came back too tired to do shit. I was drinking with Karina in the supermarket at 3 p.m.
Dude, I saw these person's stories at Ralph's, day drinking, like,
shit, girl. Like a Monday. It was
hey, I think we're exposing a little too much.
Oh no, you know, I'm gonna tell you
to keep it real.
No. I had this experience, and I was telling this to Karina a few days ago. I was taking this class with this white man professor that was wearing
with his Panama hat.
That was wearing a fucking Panama hat, talking about migration and shit. And then in some point, I submit a paper like for my midterms. And then he called me to his office, and I'm like, what the fuck? He like, well, you know, I know English is not your first language, so I just want to make sure that you was the person writing this paper.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, ask me whatever in this paper. I'm gonna let you know about everything in this paper, about every idea.
She's getting mad because she started. You can see her, she's like hitting her head to her fist.
And he's like, no, I don't know. So I'm like, listen, like, just ask me right now. I'm ready.
Exactly. And that's what we talk about when we say we have to do double the work in these spaces just to prove ourselves. Whether it's the way that I'm saying or Jennifer saying or Edna saying, like, it's always twice the amount of explanation, because we don't fit the ideal or the exemplary student that they created the institution for. So
or when, for example, like, you're proposing these ideas. For example, I'm abolitionist, so I'm always talking about abolish the prison industrial complex, abolish a nation state. And then when you talk about these uncomfortable topics, this fucking stuff, they're like, oh, but what do you mean about that? And then you have to give extra explanations when it's already there. in your fucking thesis, but they just feel unsure about these uncomfortable ideas.
Or
Well,
you
deja
get,
eso, like I said, hay muchas maneras de llegar a la misma cosa. You can build in different ways. Like, just because you can't conceptualize what I'm talking about, that doesn't mean that, like,
That right
maybe
there.
it's the tools that you're using that are inadequate for what I'm trying to build. Like, maybe what we're supposed to be building is something collective. And honest to God, like, I think that's the only, I mean, well, I don't believe in God, but, like, y'all know what I mean. Like, this semester, I've only been able to make it through because of the connections I've made with the student groups on campus that have gave my life meaning, in a sense that's like I'm able to build with people who are of this similar political mentality or similar like social backgrounds, like people who understand and can contribute, you know, like to an idea of what it looks like when we don't have these institutions that disseminate an education, where we can envision a future where we educate people in different ways that is collective, that is healing, that isn't just an imposition of a different mindset. It's something that inspires growth. I need space for growth, and you're not giving me that.
Yeah, and one of my goals is like the reason why I've been trying to do like so much research and ethnographic work, and just to pass the mic to the women that been doing the work for fucking decades, is because I want to engage with ideas that are not necessarily on paper already. I want to engage with ideas that come from tradition, from oral tradition, from testimonios, and then
from our cultures,
yeah,
Exactly.
and I want to give a space for their voices to exist. Like, that's the first goal of this project.
Yes.
And I think
Don't just say intersectionality, be about it.
Yeah. And I feel like we're all moving towards that, and honestly, technology is changing the game. And being able to do this was definitely like a vent for all of us. If you hadn't noticed, we were just like a lot of pent out energy. So but being able to just put this experience and this perspective out there, I think is super important to continue to have the conversations about how we can continue to make, you know, these big like ideas, and they're not even big because we live them every day. You know, it's just not, you know, validated, as we've been saying, by these institutions. And fuck those institutions. We know they all have to come down in order to build a world that is actually not just sustainable but equitable, and people can live like their best lives. We're always talking about like, oh, just living my best life from this capitalistic perspective, but like how about we live our best lives like learning from each other, collaborating. Oh no,
It's okay, we'll edit it out. How about we live our lives, our fullest lives, in a way that isn't mimicking or like determinant on the system that is enslaving us right now, this fucking capitalist system, something that gives us life and meaning in a way that's organic and true.
Let's decolonize our minds. Let's teach each other. Like, let's build. Let's collaborate.
Yes.
And I feel like this is what we're trying to do here. So if you're open to collaborating, hit us up.
Hit us up, fam. I swear to God, I want to hear you in our DMs. Like,
follow us. You know, we're on Instagram and.
yeah. And I think since we're talking about academia, is there any book that you recommend, Jennifer, for all to read?
academia?
Well, because we're talking about books. Well, kind of. We're not really
Anarchist
talking about.
Pedagogies, PM Press.
Hey, we were actually wanting to ask you because you're the one who's more versed in the pedagogy of the oppressed, and it talks about this. So I think before we kind of like sign off, let us and since we're talking about theory, making it accessible to people, why don't you just give us a quick recap so we can end on like.
Well, I really like the pedagogy of the oppressed, and actually I was in a panel. Paulo Freire. I was in a panel in El Monte a few months ago talking about educación popular, popular education, that it was on Spanish and it was direct to, low-income communities, families of color in the area, in a Latino neighborhood. And the reason why I'm telling this is because this is the kind of pedagogy that you can use for people that not necessarily have an educational background, and it's oppressed by institutional racism, structural economic oppression. So the pedagogy of the oppressed by Paulo Freire, it's basically saying that in order for you to access to a world that you can learn from popular education in an horizontal model, you need to get to the conscientigao, You need to be conscious about why you are oppressed and who is oppressing you and what is your role as a person in order to get to that liberation. So when you are getting the education, you're not getting an education in the way that you're fulfilling a system of education that is created by the oppressed. You are getting that education in order to liberate you and your comrades and your community from that oppression that you're living. So basically your daily experience and your daily existence, it's going to be a process in which you educate yourself in order to educate others, to organize and create platforms to liberate everybody. So
yeah, that's why she gets the big bucks, bitches.
So yeah, I really like Paulo Freire, and I really recommend you all to find a little bit about what's going on the decolonization theory, because I know there's a lot of that, but it's been written by white males on the subaltern hemisphere.
It may have been written by white males, but we have been doing that shit since the minute they stepped on our shores.
Yeah,
so
but the thing is that been existing from a long time, from before they came up with the fucking concept. It's been there. If you go and talk with the Zapatista mujeres, they've been decolonizing for a long time. If you go and talk with the revolucionarias mujeres from Africa, Asia, Central America, they've been doing the whole fucking work on decolonization as an active agents and not from a fucking institution in a panel like we do, but we keep questioning.
Yeah, it's a balance of being there, but also saying like fuck this space. Being there because they need to know, but also knowing that it's bigger than just that space.
And don't be ashamed. I love. I wanna talk about the panel that we went in Norwich. And I love the work that Swana been doing, because they're very blunt about like who they want in the space and who they don't. And I love that when we're this in academic panel, they were saying like, I know for white folks it is uncomfortable to stay in your place, but please stay in your place if you want to help us.
Our sisters at Swana.
Who's Swana again?
Swana, Southwest Asia, North Africa.
Yeah, the group they helped organize with a firm, Shadi Mansour. That's right, so that y'all know. They're doing really amazing work. They're sending people to refugee camps in Greece, right?
Yeah, like I love Pune. I've been connecting with her. That's right. I love the way that she approached people in academic spaces, because she been there, and she's also fucking done of this shit. And I really respect the labor. I need to get to her level, in the sense that I don't give a fuck what everybody think about what I'm saying. I'm just doing social justice work.
That's right, and I feel like this is all what it's about. Like, we love connecting with comadres across movements and seeing how they've been like putting in the hustle and overcoming all this bullshit. And so, again, like, shout out to all those amazing women who are performing labor in so many different ways.
Also women of color in academia that help us, like Professor Moreno.
Academic aunties.
Yeah,
that's right.
Aunties. Yes, Moreno. I remember one time Moreno told me, Edna, you have an accent, so it's gonna be hard for you. So every time that you're saying an idea, they're gonna ask for names of your fucking readings. So from there, I knew it. So now if you're gonna wanna fight me, bitch, I'll fight you back. I have some names in my back.
That's right, Dr. Moreno. Shout out if you listen to this.
I love you, Dr. Moreno.
Damn, she was a real one, and that's what it's about too. Like, always finding those people who understand the realities and who are actually dedicated to their students, because it's not just white men in there. Like, we've been making strides to get women of color in these spaces, and I want to recognize that like 100%, because if it wasn't for Dr. Moreno, and I have mad love for her, like, I probably wouldn't have even transferred. And and every time I come, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. She's like, man, you could do this. Just do it, right? And so, and it's not always as easy as that, but sometimes you just need kind of like those people, those aunties who got your back.
And also my faculty mentor for this project, I'm like, well, I don't know, and she's like, fuck it, just do it in Spanish, and if they want it in English, they have to pay for translation. And I'm like, oh, we gonna be friends. So thank you all, women of color, that have been supporting us through academia. Yeah, we love you all.
And we're actually, I feel like it's a great segue, because we're presenting an interview of someone who exists and works both within academia and outside academia. And so, Jennifer, why don't you tell them a little bit about Carla and how this all kind of came about?
Well, Carla Osorio is currently studying critical geography, looking specifically at refugee and diaspora populations in University of Oregon. She works with, y'all know her as she works with Casa Solidaria del Sur, y también tiene su propio negocio as Ixoq Arte.
Ixoq Arte?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Jennifer's giving me the eyes, like. No, she's doing a lot of work, and this is what we constantly see in the badass chingonas women in our community, is that they kind of wear these multiple roles. And so not only is she studying in academia, she taught at East LA College, and she's teaching in community, and she's also teaching about herbs that are medicinal. So she makes her like cannabis pomadas and all that stuff. And so
she's amazing, and she's also a family survivor from the civil war in Guatemala. So that's some resilience there. She's always carrying that in the way that she teach. She's always trying to bring how to heal, how to learn to live with the trauma. So I think that's one of the things that I really, really appreciate of her labor.
And with that, we want to present our interview with Carla. Just a note, we had originally filmed this as a video interview, and then at the end decided that we were just going to use it for one of our final podcast episodes. Since this year, we're looking to transition to mostly video content. So we have a lot coming up for you, but just so that y'all know, you might hear a little bit of that ambient noise since we were outdoors filming. But yeah, we're very excited. A lot of video content, interviews, profiles coming up for you in 2019. Actually including the next artist whose song we're going to feature, Rebeca, who is also a badass rapera guatemalteca, activist, artist. And we are going to be playing her song from her album Obsidiana, and it's titled Siempre, Viva.
Siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba. ¿Quién dijo que era fácil ser mujer? Desde pequeñita me hicieron creer que era bonita, y si no lo era, entonces ya nadie me iba a querer. Si era redonda era por glotona, si hablaba mucho era por chismosa. Si no estaba orando estaba pecando, y la Virgen María me estaba juzgando. Que cuando creciera me iba a casar y que cuidara mucho mi virginidad, que en vez de fumar y tomar aprendiera a limpiar bien la casa y también cocinar. Nada de tatuajes ni perforaciones, nada de bailar y enseñar los calzones. Cómo ser feliz con tantas precisiones, mando a la mierda todos sus sermones. La 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 la, hago lo que quiero porque puedo, porque soy así. La 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 la, me dicen mala hierba porque nunca me dejé morir. Siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba. La 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 la, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba. La 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 la. En redes sociales me dicen marrana, me dicen peluda, me dicen lesbiana, me dicen fea, me dicen atea, y yo siempre viva pues soy mala hierba. La 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 la, me tiran veneno, me quieren cortar. La 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 la, me tiran veneno, me quieren matar. Siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba. La 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 la, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba, siempre viva como mala hierba. La 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 la, siempre viva sé lo que soy, sé que puedo ser peor. El experimento que mal le salió, pero sus palabras no van a ofender, pues soy un orgullo de mala mujer. La 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 la, me tiran veneno, me quieren cortar. La 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 la, me tiran veneno, me quieren matar. Siempre viva como viva, siempre viva, como mala hierba.
Sure, so thank you for this interview. We're here at East LA Community College. So first and foremost, I want to honor the people of the land. So we are standing on Tomba, stolen land. Also Black liberation fighters, who have they came before us, and still people, indigenous and Black people of color still fighting, for the really minimal resources. So definitely start that, and then also my positionality. So my identity, I was born in Guatemala, and I came to the United States when I was 3. So my mom, she brought me and my brother, who was 1, and I identify as her, she, hers. And yeah, like a woman of color, organizer, educator, herbalista. Like I also do herbs and trying to decolonize through like the use of learning and unlearning, like hierbas, and definitely the cannabis community, women of color in cannabis. So I'm learning about that, and what I mean by positionality is just looking at my privileges too. Like we were just talking, like I speak English, I have this position here at this community college, which is not full-time, but is an adjunct lecturer, so I teach sociology. So looking into those, that it's able-bodied. So I just want to put that out there, because we do carry some privilege, right? Like you mentioned, in these, we do navigate this systems, some of these institutions, but then also my intersection. So I was also undocumented, and I think it's interesting. It's like a full circle being here at ELAC, because I was undocumented and I wasn't able to get financial aid. So I had the grades, I was able, finally I got my green card, and I was AB 540. But someone was like, oh, you shouldn't go to university, you should come in here to a community college. And I should have taken the advice, but then I was also very, luckily the fact that I got my green card, I was able to go to UC Irvine, so it's a 4-year university. I was thinking about the status, right? Like, oh, it's more prestigious, but I feel like community colleges are also very great and beneficial to have, in our communities, especially for low income students. So it just makes me honored, because I grew up in East LA, so it's full circle, coming back and being able to not only teach, but I'm also providing resources to my students, because a lot of my students, not only of course are they students, their identity, but they also go through different issues at home, and so I'm able to provide resources and provide another type of narrative to them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also part of community space, Solidarity House of the South. It's an intentional people of color space in South Central. I am transitioning, because I'm going to be going back to school, so it never ends. My school, while educating myself, we're always, students of life. So I'm going to be going to get a PhD in critical and human geography.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
So I'm nervous, excited, because it is another space, another location away from my intimate relationships, or from my family, my partners, my comrades, my friends, my sisters. So I do feel a little, I know my family's like, well, it's your choice, and I'm lucky to have to make that choice, because a lot of us can't.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about education and access, but it's a full 4 years, full ride. I'll be working with Professor Laura Pulido, and definitely digging more in terms of refugees, and like you mentioned, diaspora. So that's what I'm going to be studying.
Well, it seems that you've been so long in academia, and the 3 of us, Jennifer, Karina, and I, we're start this journey in academia, and one of the things that we found in common is how stressful it is to be a woman of color in academia, because usually, even when you are in progressive spaces, you always feel as
an outsider because of your gender, because of the lack of privilege you have, because the way that you decide to identify yourself, and because these spaces are not really prepared for like self-care and mental health. At least in our experience, we always are fighting microaggressions, especially from the staff that is teaching you, that demands like this kind of respect. It's really difficult to have a positionality on that sense without being affected personally, and then just to keep fighting for what you think is justice can be like really grateful. So I don't know if you have some experiences about that you would like to share, that maybe like some points in your life that it was like really important for you to define yourself as an academic, and what is your position as an educator after?
I think it reminds me, so I got my master's in social work at USC, and believe it or not, a lot of the professors are brown, are Latinx, but I think language is a big issue, not in terms of like more like when you do your papers, right? So I did my paper on factory workers, and I used the term sweatshop.
Yeah.
And one of my professors was like, I'm gonna like, no, this is wrong. You can't use the term sweatshop. And I'm like, what? And he's like, no, you have to use like factory or yeah, like something more academic. And I know I'm talking to one of my friends. She's like, yeah, that's academia. Like you're learning, and you're learning a new language through academia. So for a lot of us who, our parents aren't even like college, graduates, or it's like W.E. Du Bois talk about double consciousness, right? This double consciousness that you're in this white space, white institution, you're white supremacist, and then you have to navigate this lane. So to me, it was interesting coming from a brown Latinx professor telling me, oh no, you have to. But so then later on, I understood why I was using the term sweatshop, because it's political.
Yes.
Right? So when you use sweatshop instead of factories, like you're talking about labor conditions. You're talking about these conditions that mainly are like more like women of color that have to go through that. So after USC, I was able to be part of a collective in Boyle Heights. We started community education for social action, and I felt like creating those spaces, like you are creating like Comadres, right? These podcasts, I think they're really, they're just really powerful for those of us that I just feel because academia should be accessible, or like just education in general. So just forming our own pods or forming our own groups of people that are gonna have your back and are gonna support your political understanding. Not just these professors. So that's what helped me. Like, how do you find outlets? It's like getting involved. Creating our own spaces. Definitely help me navigate.
Yeah, definitely, that's super important. And also, I see a lot of our comrades are really stressed out on academia. And then if you are part of like a working class community, if you're part of an immigrant diasporical community, you're not gonna have the time to say like, okay, let me take 1 year off of this, or let me just take some space to take care of myself, because many times you're working, you're going to school, you're hustling. So as a person with so many disadvantages, like for example, like you are not body able, you're part of like very marginalized community, you're a single mom, those are going to be obstacles that the whole idea of academic success is not really taking in account. It's just trying to, like this idea, like get your degree and then you're going to be part of the educated community, you're going to be part of like the working class community, you're going to be able to make money to survive. And I think it's so important that the point that you bring is like we need to find these outlets in which we feel comfortable expressing our own ideas without being judged by these distrust. Because many times there's like a distrust in the way that we see academia, at least for us. it's so obvious. When you can find like people that you can mirror those, it's very therapeutical, and it's a way to decolonize yourself. And you was talking also like you're part of you try to decolonize through herbalism.
Oh yeah.
Is that tied to like a tool of survival that you start when you was at school?
So that's interesting because that goes into why I'm an educator, teaching, because I was working for a nonprofit and that was really toxic. So I left. It's like, what do we do? Like, I think a lot of us who go to college, we want to get a career. So it's like now it's like, okay, you work for a nonprofit. Like, what do you do? But even within these nonprofits, I found them to be very problematic. In their agendas, and so they all obviously, like you mentioned, they all mirror like capitalism. They all mirror this like these systems of oppression, right? And how do we dismantle, or how do we not even like bother, just like create our own, like type of resistance. So that's why I think working with herbs or just learning from different other like herbalists like has helped. That's an outlet for me, right? Like learning, and I think it's also part of decolonizing and just like learning each of the hierbas. Like they have their own like life, their own vida, and the fact that it's medicinal for a lot of us, and it's like trusting and not being like so programmed. Like we've been so conditioned, and like going to the hospital or going, and it's like we have. I think what I've learned is like we have our own solutions. We have our own solutions. We can, if we trust, of course, if we trust one another, right? It's like, instead of calling the cops, you call your neighbor, call a friend, right? So these are all ways of, that's the way I see it, like connecting it. But I think going back to like stress, I think Victor Jara said like being a student is revolutionary. Yeah. So I think a lot of students now in academia, they feel very alienated, right? From even what the things that you're reading. So what I do is that I don't really use a textbook. Yeah. So because textbooks are written by white men, so I don't really go. And I feel a lot of the students aren't able to relate to the textbook. I tell them it's not mandatory. They're really expensive. So I provide supplemental readings, and they can read from like people of color, from authors of color that, like, if we're talking about immigration, and we're talking about migration, and we're talking about, we just talked about global capitalism, right? Like not a lot of the stories or the concepts you're not gonna find them on the textbooks. Yeah. So you're gonna find them on other, like I gave an article Del Sur, like other articles that are more accessible to them, and it's like showing them like alternative media, and not just like Fox News or that is so super problematic. So I think my job, or the job of educators, is like how can you make it relatable and accessible to your students, so they can feel connected to, because they have their experiences, like they live it. Everything we talk about, all these social issues, like they're living it on the daily. Yeah. So then just opening the conversations, like more than this person who wrote this textbook.
Yeah, and coming back to that, an idea that we were discussing before is like the epistemological violence that is so present on the textbooks, that is so present in like the narrative norm on how you tell history, how you frame history in a sense that it's polite for those powers that have been hegemonic and imperial, and they keep oppressing. And of course the male gaze, like how had been an issue over time, especially for women of color, that we being explained by white men. And like we were discussing before, like the anthropology is a colonial practice, and it's really traumatic to think about yourself giving all your resources, all your time, to keep learning this colonial discourse on how you are represented in the eyes of otherness. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. What that reminds me, I feel like academia values, or they prioritize quantitative research over qualitative, or like our own stories, our own narratives, right? And I feel like students are just another number, right? Like I think their priorities like to profit out of students and our labor and our work. Well, you're as professors, so it's like how do you work together, right? Like with the students and of course the professors, because there is a disconnection, right? Because you see professors as an authority figure.
Yeah.
So I try to bring also like Paulo Preri, right? Like pedagogy press, like how do we and I bring guest speakers and then we dismantle because of like banking system education, right? It's like what you just mentioned, like read this textbook, memorize it, and then vomit all the information, and they don't learn. Like you're not learning it, and you are learning from. I think it's very. Some students are like, oh, your information's biased. It's like, no, everything that we're learning is biased. It's like founded under like this white like the founding fathers are also white men, and then you're mentioning the white gays. It's like, so how do I think a lot of times also like specifically the students who identify as women and in the classroom, I really like to give them the space, so they bring a lot of what you just mentioned, like sexism, or even like the relationship they have with their partners or their fathers, right? And then and not only that, but then you also have this relationship with like male professors. So a lot of how do you deal with that gender dichotomy, gender dynamic, and I feel that's why it's important to have women, women professors and women of color professors. And I'm not saying like all women, right? Because some women, we're still trying to decenter patriarchy and decenter masculinity, but I don't know, like breaking the binary as well, the gender binary, of course, and just having those type of discussions.
Yeah, often happen when I'm in a class, like in a division class. There is a really minimal LGBT community in the class. Often they are tokenized by the professors, and it's really harmful to be tokenized, because when the demographics favor like communities of color, being a minority within the communities of color, it's even more oppressive when you are the LGBT community token of the professor. It's really violent the way that
like they point it out,
and they try to write your narrative as a person, what you represent to the rest of the community. So I don't know if you have some comments on that.
I think that definitely happens. I have one of I gave a test yesterday, and one of the questions like, why do you think there's so much trans violence in our communities? And of course, it's like we talk about patriarchy, right? Like this like patriarchal, like I don't know, like Bell Hooks has said, like we all have been. She calls it a disease, right? That patriarchy is a disease, and so we're all contaminated with that by that disease. But how do we? And I think maybe like some of the way I try to do it, right? Like we're all learning, is like give the students, whoever, if they want to share, they don't have to, but if they do identify as like trans or gender non-binary, they're the ones who are sharing their own story, instead of us like assuming and coming in with like an assumption, or like, I don't know, like you said, like to tokenize, is like what if they want to share, right? And the students do open up, they've shared like, we have community agreements, so I treat the classroom as a community. That's what I try to do, is like try to not make it so dehumanizing, because I think we've been like dehumanized through like like displacement and then coming to this country and then being in this like schooling type of process, and so it's very dehumanizing. So it's like, how do we start sharing our narratives, our stories, which is hard, because even for me, being like now with the diaspora, right, being from Guatemala, like it's really hard to talk to my family, right, about like politics. They're still living during times of like war, and like they still remember my grandma's dad was fue desaparecido, so he was disappeared. We don't know. She still doesn't know why. Of course, it was during the 68, 70s where a lot of people were getting disappeared. So it's really hard to, like, sometimes we have a lot of contradictions. Like we're we're inviting people to share their stories, but it's like, what about our own stories? That's with the intergenerational trauma that we carry. So I think that's where it gets like really, really hard for my students.
Yeah, since you touched the topic of being Guatemalan, I think being Central American and have this such recent history of war, of violence, I think definitely mirrors in the diaspora and in the transnational community here. On my personal experience, also my family lives the sequels of the Civil War. I have political murders on my family, and there's a stigma also because the people that being persecuted disappeared. They were students, they were organizers. So then I have a mother, for example, that lives during the war, that has this national indoctrination of what is to be an intellectual in Guatemala, and the fears and the concept that they have about it, that I don't think it will be possible to erase, because they live all their life with that fear, with that oppression, systematic oppression. And every time that I talk with my family, I'm trying to bring them as a part of my life, but there's just a line that I cannot cross, because they suffer through so much violence, displacement, and I keep having soft and dreams of persecution after I move here. And I know you have also some stance on what are your beliefs about Guatemala. I think we both kind of have the same line of opinion. And I know you want to talk about the importance of memoria histórica, especially coming from a country like Guatemala, and how the academia here lacks to that. How much we have to fight for those spaces, for those kind of representation that they are just non-existent here because it's so recent. So also it's so political to talk from a place of personal experience, because you are blaming an oppressor. So just to having your own emotions involving on the injustice that you feel is to accuse someone of your pain, a system. So I don't know if you want to talk about that topic. I know it's kind of
intense.
Yeah. So however you feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons why I want to get my PhD is it goes back to like my family, right? I think, I don't know, just like documenting our stories is like really powerful for me. And I have family who was part of the armed struggle in Guatemala, but we can talk about it, right? In my family, and so they're not here. They're like refugees. So to me, a refugee is like something really personal. And every time, like, this is like, I think the second interview I get like really emotional, because there are books that I have next to me, like in my little table, mesita de noche, and I can't open those books. They were gifted to me, and it just talks about the genocide, in Guatemala. And it's so hurtful, because it's like the other day I showed my students the documentary Harvest of Empire, and it just talks, my student was like, oh my god, miss, I didn't know about this, like all these like US intervention, and till now, like, I didn't grow up with my cousins, I didn't grow up with, so that's why I know I'm really passionate about building community, like building sisterhood, because that's what my mom taught me, like, and then at the university, to know that there's only like 0.04% of women of color with PhDs, and I don't even know how many like are from Central America. So Central American diaspora is really something that I feel like needs to be, investigated, documented, because going back to the white gaze or the male gaze, right? Like we only, like one of our friends said, the history of Guatemala is the history of the United States, the history of Central America, the history of Puerto Rico. It's like these colonies, right? Like they're the imperialists. They're the imperialist project, and it's like how do we like how do we uncover our own stories, our own her stories? And I think that's my passion. Although I know it's gonna be really meaningful, but I feel like we have to start somewhere. And it's true, like everyone, I think it's our, how do we put it, like it's nuestro trabajo, I think it's our time.
Yeah.
And I feel like you and I, like, I feel we are los hijos de los desaparecidos. We are los hijos, and I think there's a group in Guatemala, it's called los hijos, los hijos, and they're like the hijos de la resistencia, because we come from that. But again, like, I understand like how my family, my mom wouldn't want to talk about it because it's so painful. But I think it's like kind of like our that labor that we have to do.
Yeah, I think it's also part of the healing of the intergenerational trauma, especially from the mothers, because Guatemala has this patriarchal normative on how the woman is the one that has to take the responsibility of the emotional labor on the family, and often who is the mother of the family, the one that keeps the secrets, the one that repress the feelings in order to go through life for their children without keep that alive, because it's the way that it was during the wartime in Guatemala. We both born during the Civil War, and now, like, every time I moved away from Guatemala like 7 years ago, but even there it was not present. It was just this eradication of historical memory histórica, and this effort that you have to deny genocide, to deny history, to deny something that is palpable, that is there. You literally have Las Mujeres y Chiles giving their speech in a trial against genocide. People keep saying that it never happened, it was not there. So, like you say, I found really compelling this idea that you have as a responsibility, because I feel the same way, especially from my family, because I see how much they hold in their pockets, and like you say before, the big privilege that is to be here, to have access to education, to have access to generate a voice. For example, this is something that our mothers will never be able to do in the age that we have now, because you know what's going to happen to them during the wartime. So I found very inspiring that you take it as a responsibility with your community and your family, and you have any like gain from you being an educator. You feel that you have made change in your students, especially the Central American students. Like, have you seen some like change, like Paulo Freire say, you have to create this conscientización. Have you seen any of that in your students?
Yeah, I think that's what I celebrate. You know, every day. I think like there's pain, but there's also like celebration, and I think our role is also to like build consciousness, right? Like that consciousness in the seeds, in the students, plant those seeds. And I think the best thing I've been told from a student is that after my class, they feel confident. And I don't think it's, to me, education is not about like how much you know, right? Because again, that's like quantitative data, but it's about how you're making others feel. And I feel the fact that she's 53, she's Chinese, I think, and she's like, you're so great. Like she's learned so much, right? But I don't tell them, I don't make them memorize. I don't use Scantron. I'm like, I hate Scantron. I know, standardized testing. So they write, it's more like a narrative form. But she told me, this class is making her more confident, and I really like that because I know that after this class, she can, in other classes, she's gonna take that confidence with her, and she's gonna do well in those classes. So I think that's like the best, like type of consciousness, like I've reached so far in some of the students.
Yeah, I feel that it's always a fight. That we always, in these spaces that require us to give a little more, to be more responsive, to be like more aware. I remember when I write my applications for like the first phrase that I wrote in like my personal essay was like, I'm an immigrant from Guatemala. I came from a place of genocide, displacement, imperialism, and the history of colonization, but at the same time, I am the response. And that was like the statement. And then after I finished my essay, I read it, and it's just to express the way that I feel as a person, as an individual, reflects how life can position you in such a political position, right? Because you're politicized just by your existence, just because you want to resist to the struggle, you want to resist to the suffer. You are a political being, 24/7. You can escape from that. So I really understand when you say like you have responsibility, because just your existence is a political matter in a country like the US.
Oh yeah. That might sound odd, but yeah, like you mentioned, I think it's part of the healing process as well. So it's like, how do you balance both?
Yeah. Is there another topic that you would like to talk about? I know you're a hustler because you have your
Ixoq Arte, like the kind of,
You have the medicinal cannabis. You are a healer too because you know how to create these self-care products. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, because at the same time it's like you're a hustler because you're trying to get that money on the side.
Yes, the gas money now, because it's getting, I feel like we're living under really intense, like really bad conditions, right? Like under fascism, and everything's like getting like really expensive. So I think although like people know, oh, you're a professor, like they see like, oh, you probably have a lot, like you're hood rich, and it's like, no girl, like no, I'm not. That's like the other things on the side, and I think like women are always like the hustlers, we're always hustling. But I think I also learn a lot, from my students as well, and I try to going back to the medicine. I think it's very intergenerational, because a lot of times when it comes to cannabis, it's the señoras, like the older women who like support it. Yeah, but they're the ones who like are buying it and they're supporting it. So I really appreciate that. It's not just like one generation, but it's across all generations.
Yeah, I definitely feel that cannabis should be reappropriated by the people who own herbalismo, medicinismo. We should take that from the white hands, because it's something that belongs to us historically. It's something that was ripped from us during colonization, and now it's like renamed and positioned in a way that is profiting for the wrong community. Especially as women, as diosas, we need to take all the resources that we have and explode them. Reparations, right?
Yes, reparations, yes. But thank you for the interviews.
I actually had one question. I was wondering if that...
You want to sit here? I'll hold it.
Okay.
Careful, yeah, that helps.
Yeah, got it.
Oh my god.
I know your arm. That's
My shoulders.
Oh.
Ouch. Yeah, actually, I had some questions. I was wondering about, so de lo que vienes, ¿verdad? Wondering if you got that from your mom or your grandma, because I know you guys started also Generaciones en Acción.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that as well.
Oh yeah, so that was back in 2013. So my mom and grandma, I really admire them. They're like super, like you mentioned, like diosas. Like I learned a lot from them. Not only through because my grandma, she followed her dream, so she was she's an actress in Guatemala, and then that's what she always wanted to be. But it's really to hear from her because she has like a whole story. And talking about narratives, like she actually wrote her memoirs, like her stories, because going back to displacement, like our cousins are not here with us, right? They're somewhere else. So my cousin wants to read because she's like, I've had another privilege is like spending time with my grandma, right, with my maternal grandma. So we're gonna work things out. She's gonna send them to her. But so with my mom and grandma, we wrote a book, Los Hijos que Tejen. So we interviewed 22 women in the community. A lot of them are really well-known leaders in Latinx community. And so it was really important for us to share about migrant women and like why they came to this place, like because the face of the, I guess you could say like the profile of the immigrant is that women. A lot of women are crossing multiple borders. So we really wanted to put that project together, and then through there we started Generaciones en Acción. So that's our intergenerational project. My mom she made it into a nonprofit, and in 2013 I read one of Inside's book. I don't know if you ever heard about Inside, the feminist collective, called The Revolution Starts at Home. So it's about sexual assault and restorative justice. So when I read that title, I'm like, okay, like I'm on las protestas, you know, with like los jóvenes, but what about my family? Right? Like talking about these stories. So I decided to work with my mom and grandma. And that's how our intergenerational relationship started. And it's been beautiful. I learned so much from them. And then with Generaciones en Acción, seeing that a lot of migrants don't have their immediate families here. So we're trying to create these type of extended communities and families. So people are, because I think something that we're noticing is a lot of people feel very lonely, right? Obviously in an urban city, urban jungle, so they feel really lonely. They don't know where to go or resources. So with Generaciones en Acción is a space to bring the different generations and like learn from one another, because I think also the US is very individualistic and tries to like separate all the generations. And we're just trying to like bring a little bit more of like the warmth, right? Like some people say like, oh, yo no crecí con mi abuelita. No, I was, or with my mom. So then they meet other folks and they start just having conversations. And it's great because now the era of like technology, right? Like people are not seeing eye to eye or having conversations. So this is a way to rebuild our values as a community.
I think it's interesting you say that because it ties back to what you were saying about how like academia and institutions like these don't really honor how validate subjective narratives, because everything is subjective, right? How they don't really honor subjective narratives, because even though everything is subjective, they always try to invalidate yet again our stories, our learnings and our teachings and things that's like this isn't valid because it didn't come from within the walls of institutions of academia. And it's like, no, but
it's not a theory.
Exactly.
It's not a theory.
But how much more am I learning from talking to my abuelita if I have that privilege of having to see her physically and hearing her? That's again how we continue keeping ancestral memory. And it's like how that's also constantly invalidated. I think it's so beautiful that both three generations are working together, and pulling together their resources, their knowledge to create something like this. I think it's very powerful. That's another thing that reminded me about Edna's statement about being the response to imperialism that has kept separate generations separate, but no, we're together. This is a response, us together and forming these spaces.
Yeah, definitely, because that reminds me of like borders. Usually they're physical, but then they can also be the border of like relationships and like these like how can you dismantle those like create those connections or that unity back again, that puzzle. So true. Stories. I think stories are really, really important, really significant, and that's why I also remind my students or share like, write your own biography. So don't let anyone else like define you or write it for you. Like you need to write it for yourself, and I think that's what that's why there's cultural appropriation, right? Like they try to gentrification. They try to erase art, and we need to preserve it.
Or a government that won't admit that genocide happened. Oh my God. Like this is how we know it happened. Like. Our fears are tears or memories or callings, todo eso viene de algún lugar y no lo van a poder negar porque sé que existió, sé que está dentro de nosotros.
There you go, word maps. Word maps of resistance. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.